We're almost ready to get started. Chris, or have you got us live over there? Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. And before we start, I'd like to remind everyone to put your phones on vibrate or turn them off because they will ring just like they usually do. Mine's off finally. Okay, we want to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. I would ask everyone to stand now for the national anthem. Thank you. Okay. We're going to start by approving the agenda. I have a motion moved by Dan Meek, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council to be held on February 25th, 2025 be approved as, are there any amendments, Kathy?
No, there are not, Madam Mayor.
So to be approved as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof by any member of council on any item on tonight's agenda? We'll note that in the minutes. Motion moved by Lynn Clegg, seconded by Philip Smith, that the minutes from the regular meeting of council held February the 11th, 2025 be approved as presented. Any comments, amendments? All those in favor? Carried. Mayor's remarks, just a few remarks. First, I want to start by congratulating the roads department to get us cleaned up through that crazy snowstorm. And for the efforts of all the folks on Family Day, Family Weekend, that we did get some events happening, but a lot of them will maybe still happen, like the Polar Bear Plunge and some other things. So stay tuned. Snowmobilers are loving this snow. But today it did start to melt a little. So the trails have been busy, which is a good thing, I guess. But spring is in the air. I think most of you have heard about the Parham Fair dilemma And I would just like to mention that if anybody can help out by donating, it's the only fair that we have in Frontenac County, and we need to try and support and build up their money so that something can happen this year. So that would be a pledge that I would certainly hope that everybody could reach in their wallets and give a little. Whatever you could give would be helpful. Does anyone have anything to add?
Remember the trail on the tower?
Oh, the tower, right. We have another tower that's just gone live, and it's right beside Councillor Gowdy's house. Bennington Road and 38 Highway is what they call it. Brannigan, yeah.
Brannigan Trail.
And so Rogers is alive and well there, and maybe if you have Starlink, you can get rid of it. Okay, Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not.
Okay, does anyone have anything to add? Susan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Better pull this closer. For those of you that were disappointed that we didn't have the polar bear plunge during the festival weekend, I'll still be plunging. End of March, we're plunging into spring. And to carry along on that theme, the Charlotte Lake Farmers Market that was going to have a market and farm-to-table lunch during the festival weekend, they've rescheduled to April 12th for a spring fling. And a couple of other events are coming up in March. The Charlotte Lake Business Group is going to be having a dance on March 8th at the hall. And the following Saturday, North Frontenac Little Theater and the Masons are hosting another dance. So lots of activities to look forward to in this community.
Excellent. And the one other thing I forgot to say is voting Thursday. So get out there and mark your ballot. Okay, that's it for me. We will move on to delegations. And our first delegation is Bill Wong and Terry Kennedy from the Kennebec Lake Association. Come on up to the table there. Just push that button till the green light comes on. And it's very movable, so bring it close to speak right into it. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, and CAO Kathy. Greetings to you from Kennebec Lake. My name is Bill Wong. I live at 1644 Blue Heron Ridge Road on Kennebec Lake. Retired here, now living here full-time for 2.5 years, loving it. So wonderful place to be. And we'll be talking about the management of emergencies and hazards in central Frontenac. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Terry.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Pleasure to be here. It's been a while. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Irwin, I think it's great news. The two councillors from Kennebec District have indicated they're also going to accompany you on the plunge. So they're...
Are you putting words in their mouth?
Thank you for this opportunity to convey a bit of a message from our colleagues on Kennebec Lake. As Bill indicated, my name is Terry Kennedy. I've owned property in what was originally Kennebec since 1970. I was 3 years old at the time and purchased property, but my wife Judy and I have been here full-time since 2025, and like Bill, we've loved almost every minute of it. Some of the times that do get in the way, however, are when the weather or various circumstances send us a bit of a curve, and it's in that regard that we wanted to bring this message to you. The events of the fall of last year in September, when we had rain for, it seemed like weeks on end, we had a series of breaches of beaver dams, two of them in the Kennebec area that caused us some concern, and we ended up discussing them, and the result of some of our discussions and thinking has resulted in what we're bringing to you tonight. We feel that we're just delighted that nobody was hurt in the breaches that happened. And we had, although there was one vehicle incident where a car went off the road on Richardson Road, for the most part, we're not aware of any physical harm to people, and we're very grateful for that. But we did want to share some things, and I would ask Chris if you could put that first one. It's the last picture, or page 22, that one that you see, and we can leave that one up for a little bit. This was the breach of the dam on what we have called Airport Creek, because it's very close to where the Baker Valley airstrip is, just north of Kennebec Lake. And in this, you can see that we had a pretty thorough breach. And there was a good large quantity of water that flowed, and it absolutely washed out Baker Valley Road. And the conditions that resulted from that were of concern to us. You can see with this amount of water that your works crew and roads people did a great job in what in effect was rebuilding the road. But they had to wait a considerable period of time for the water to recede because there had been so much trapped behind this large beaver dam that in fact was just north of Baker Valley Road, but was some 4 feet or so above the road. So when it let go, there was an awful lot. And I'm sure not going to read through this because you've done that, I'm sure. But some of the complications that concerned us, first of all, people were absolutely, as you could see, prevented from any kind of vehicular passage. And that was okay. September was fine weather, except for all the rain. But we got worrying about what would happen if there was a medical emergency or a fire or some other kind of a serious episode that required people to get through, to provide assistance, or people to get out for whatever kind of medical situation they may have had. Now, the roads people did a great job, because what they really had to do was wait almost 2 to 3 days for that water to really drain, and then they rebuilt the road. And it's terrific. They did a great job, but they had to rebuild the road. And then we're concerned as well with what flowed into the lake. There were years of accumulation of material that the beavers had processed through their bodies, and that flowed into the lake. So we have a lot of our members, and it would be this situation to be the same in any of the lakes around. There are large numbers of people who draw directly from the lake for all kinds of household use, and for some that includes consumption. And hopefully they're treating it with a UV light or some mechanism, but it's still that we're talking about human consumption. And then the third overlay, the complicator, was that we didn't really have a communication protocol at the time that would allow you folks to get a message out, or people who were coming up to the lake, or people trapped away from their dwelling or trapped in their dwelling. And they may not have even have known that this happened, and may not have known that the water was not safe to consume. And so we got thinking about this and thought, well, how could we all come to grips with that? And are there things that we could talk to you about, and things that we could talk together about trying to do? Now, on the this top of the second page of our submission, we've identified some factors or some incidents that have happened around us going back a few years. And as far ago as 1998, when we had the ice storm here, but other things that went through the derecho that went along Highway 7, some of the microbursts that have hit north and west of us that took out great swaths of, fortunately, were pretty much vacant land, but not so much along Highway 7 for that storm of what was it, 2 years ago. So we're concerned about that, and what do we do? And talking about managing emergencies. So emergency is maybe a strong word, and it's not an emergency in the way of thinking that your emergency coordinator would need to deal with, nor that you would have to deal with through your emergency response plan. And by the way, credit to you for having one. And we've read through it and it looks good. And you know, you've got the pieces in place for a big deal. A tanker blows up or a major derailment or something that's huge. But it's these other things that aren't in that same category, but they're pretty dislocating for any of the people who have to cope with them and with the aftermath. And so we're saying, is there a way to approach these things? Could be beaver dam breaches, could be a vehicle accident that is not a huge management issue, but it is something that we have to deal with in Central Frontenac. And so we're talking, I guess, Chris, the next picture could go there. And thank you. This one is actually from 2018. So we did reference the fact that these things can happen anytime, and they do. And this is the same creek. It's a different kind of an angle, but by golly, that thing is flowing too. The water there isn't too bad. It's not as brown as what you saw in the first picture, because that had more years of accumulation. But this is another part of the reality. This took the culvert and part of the road of Baker Valley Drive out, but not the entire thing the way the one of last fall did. And in your emergency plan, you do talk about it's these quiet times when we're not coping with a particular thing, when it's time for us all to reflect and say, how could we think about these things? What could we learn? Are there things we can anticipate? And are there things that we could plan? And we're submitting respectfully that yes. And part of that is the communication. We understand that you have made some adjustments to your communication protocol and procedures, and that's terrific. But you know, we think there's room for all of us to dialogue about those kinds of things. And Bill tells me I'm getting close. So we would encourage council to engage in its next provincially mandated review of the emergency response plan, to engage with some of these second level thinkings. What can we do? How can we work as a community? And we're the first to jump up and say, it shouldn't be that you have to feel it's your problem. No, it's our problem. It's our problem as a community. And so we're pleased as our own group, but we know there are other groups in the area that would say, yeah, sure, we'd like a chance to talk about some ideas about how can we come to grips with this. The one thing I'd have to say is that I'm a little concerned personally with coming in here and we're talking about perhaps managing activities of beaver and so on. And this is a troubled time. I almost feel unpatriotic looking to control activities of beaver. They're serving us so well in terms of our national symbol in coping with our neighbors to the south. So I feel a bit guilty there, but I still feel that we need to talk about that. So if we could just read our recommendation, we're recommending that at its next provincially mandated annual review of the emergency response plan, as mandated on page 2 of that plan, Central Frontenac undertake to supplement the plan to provide for the anticipation, prevention, and management of second-level emergency incidents, including plans for community communications. Bill?
Thanks very much, Terry. I'll just wrap up. There's some very interesting things here I'd like to share and talk about in the future. And I'd like to end our presentation by sharing a little accident I had last Friday on Blue Heron Ridge Road. Nobody was injured, but we ended up with having 2 cars blocking the road, one deeply in the ditch. And very quickly, we made a couple of phone calls. 3 people showed up, and we worked hard, quickly. We got the cars out of the ditch, and we were able to drive away and clear off the road. And at that time, we were thinking about, we got to get this road clear, just in case there is an emergency. What if someone needed medical assistance when we're blocking the road? What would have happened, right? So it's really important. Those roads are lifelines for us living around there. And just 2 phone calls, 3 people came. People are willing to help and work together with all of you. And we are there to work with you and support you. We just need the call. We'll be there. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members.
Excellent. Thank you. I will tell you, the Beaver Dam flooding of roads is something that we have faced a number of times. And the one that I'm thinking about, first of all, Crow Lake just about lost houses in a flood from above the railroad track. There was one back Burke Settlement Road. That particular one, the fire department was moving people in boats from one side to the other to get them out. OPP are often there, the fire department, paramedics. So if you needed to get across, we would get you across. But we do need to have a specific plan that we can show people so that you feel comfortable to know that something will happen. We do tabletop exercises, but we haven't done too many on floods. Chris, we're putting that on our list, right? So thank you for bringing that to us, and we will try to figure out a communication. Not easy. No, we don't have landlines, or a lot of people don't have landlines anymore to call. So maybe a chain. Telephone chain. We call the association, you call your members, that kind of thing. Certainly, we'll be picking your brains as we go through, and maybe we'll have a little committee sit down to try and figure out, get everybody's ideas and put something together. Thank you for bringing it to us. Questions? Duncan and then Cindy.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So that was going to kind of be my question. So what's your opinion on the best way for us to communicate with you timely and effectively when there's these type of incidents or an incident in your nearby community?
I don't know, truthfully. It's a complex thing. When I moved to the area, the place that I moved into, Mr. L. Anderson, he was an ex-RCMP, and I looked through the stuff in his cupboards. There was a big list of contact info of people lived in the area, and a phone tree, some kind of a fan out, and for emergencies. And of course, with today's technology, cell phones and all that, that's all gone to the wayside. So I'm not sure what's the best way, but I think we'd be happy to work with you to figure out what works.
Good. Cindy.
Could I just add
Oh,
something, Madam Mayor,
sure.
through you to Councillor McGregor? It's, we're, particularly me, I'm of a certain age, and I'm not sure I'm as well equipped to respond to a question like that. People like Chris behind us and so on, I think with the opportunity to interact and share about the best ways, because you mentioned phone trees, and that very well may be, but how to connect them, and then whether it's landlines or other forms of social media, your website, and various things. just as the one other thing I would just add, and I omitted it, but you opened the door. The managing these things, we used to, in the old timers, in the results of beaver activity, threatening culverts and so on, we used to see old bed springs at the front end of a culvert to prevent the beaver from plugging up tiles and culverts. And now there are things like beaver deceivers that are much more promising. But it's that kind of opportunity to share the opportunity to talk about communication management, the anticipation, identifying. I know that some of us had talked about drones, and that's got its own problems. The use of the imagery that in the pictures that is in our submission from Frontenac maps that might allow for some predictions of where there's a hazard.
We have so much water around. Cindy, we need people with their beaver license, beaver trapping license. Go
I
ahead,
just
Cindy.
wanted to thank Bill and Terry for your presentation. It was a very good presentation. And I'm sure when we do our review that Chris will bring some stuff forward for us that we can review and see what we can do to help with the problem. And I also want to say, Terry, if you hold my hand, I'll jump with you.
No.
I think we'll leave now before it spreads any further.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a motion moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Susan Irwin, that council receive the presentation from Bill Wong and Terry Kennedy on behalf of the Kennebec Lake Association for information. All those in favor? Carried. All right, now we have Jeff Michi to speak about the draft safe properties bylaw. Jeff, you know how to push that button and, okay. You got to push, you got to push the button, Jeff.
I have no intention of being here at every council meeting. It's just the
It's
way
good
this
to hear, Jeff.
happens to line up. I'm sure people are pleased. So, thank you, Mayor Smith and members of council for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking tonight representing my personal opinions of my wife and I as longtime taxpayers of this township of Central Frontenac, both as permanent and seasonal residents. I consider my grandchildren, who are now seasonal residents, they represent the original family of settlers dating back prior to Confederation. But importantly, they are part of the 55% of taxpayers who are seasonal. And more importantly, they are the future of Central Frontenac, because the county says that 75% of the growth in this township will be based on seasonal. So you may ask why I raise this point, but it's simply because when I look at the Safe Properties Bylaw, how it's been communicated, the seasonal are being left in. Left out. They need to have equal opportunity to provide input, and that's something that is not currently happening. I'd like to be very clear on this point. I am not speaking both sides of my mouth. A number of members of council, both past and present, senior township staff, Mayor Smith herself, has heard me pontificate about my concerns regarding the problems with bylaws, but specifically the lack of enforcement. So when I saw your strategic plan, I was pleased because I looked under the healthy community development and it says to strengthen and support the enforcement of bylaws. That made me happy. But I then look at it again. It requires balance with other measures. Establish strategically focused public engagement through communication. And how are residents being involved in the planning and implementation of the development to ensure that it meets their needs and desires? So I expect succinct and well-written bylaws to address these important issues. The bylaws have to be enforceable, and they should not be based including some trivial matters. So I would like to thank those members of council that did share through this process and get it out. Their efforts resulted in a petition with 781 names protesting the proposed bylaw. Individuals that saw it as overreaching and basically wrong. So let's not forget that the majority of the population, over 55% of the seasonal residents, were not kept informed. Cottage associations did not receive advice from the township staff. There were absolutely no notice in the tax letter anywhere to talk about how to keep involved when you're away, wherever you are, Ottawa, Kingston. But what does the 781 people saying there's something wrong with this bylaw? Well, taxpayers want to be involved. Otherwise, they wouldn't put their name to a petition. And they weren't happy. What is interesting, when you look at 781 over a course of a few days, that's more than almost 2 times as many individuals signed the petition as they did vote for the most elected councillor here. Almost 3 times the member with the least. That's pretty remarkable results. So my first suggestion is staff needs to stop trying to push this through. Let's get it done properly. Let's get proper feedback from all taxpayers. And when I look at the report and I see March 13th, I don't think that timeline is reasonable. We're going into March break. You're asking, I'm sorry, I'm going to switch documents here. So we're switching, sorry, I lost, okay. So there's no reason for a mandated date of March 13th for a document that's very complex. It's 18 pages long. People have to be able to read that, write it. They have to be able to get their feedback to the councillors. For the councillors to try and consolidate all that by March 13th, that doesn't make sense. I'm just saying let's slow down and let's do it proper. We do have an opportunity here for proper and full feedback from all taxpayers. We saw where Councillor McGregor, thank you very much, put together an excellent motion at the last meeting to ensure that we had proper feedback and that things were completed. Why not wait until that report comes back, or at least start looking at how do we do that? Let's use this as a proper format to get feedback from all taxpayers, okay? Not just those that happen to read it in Frontenac News or hear about it word of mouth because they are here. Let's share it. So let's understand the core of the current bylaw issue. The problem that actually I believe we're facing is not a result of not having bylaws. Unfortunately, it's the result of ignoring enforcement, ignoring or not being able to do enforcement, lack of bylaw education, looking at how the bylaws all come together. And again, Councillor McGregor, that was a great idea to put all the bylaws together. But I also believe that many of the residents are concerned about confidentiality. And I know on one that I did, I asked specifically that it not be shared with the councillor in that area. But they also have to feel comfortable that if they take the time to put a complaint in, that it will be addressed. And that hasn't happened over the last several years. Right now, existing bylaws do work. And as detailed, Ms. Shorts has put together a very good presentation for you later. You're getting good numbers. You are getting traction. Whether or not you deal with the 2013 bylaw or we push forward on a new one right away, I don't think it matters. You're getting traction. You're getting bylaw work done. So I did look at this, and I found this quite interesting. But what is the community profile that the bylaw actually should look at? And it's not Brockville, it's not Kingston, it's definitely not Forest Hill, and it's a lot more than the small area of the community that is just Charlotte Lake. So when you read the website, it has been very eloquently described as what the bylaw should represent. And it says, the Township of Central Frontenac enjoys a unique character and quality of life that distinguishes the municipality from other areas of Ontario. The rural values, the sense of place, the unique landscapes, the importance of water resources, and the quality of life enjoyed by all those who live and visit the community is integral to the municipality. Well, that definition describes exactly why people have moved here, why visitors come to Central Frontenac. What do they expect? No, do they want to drive down Highway 7 and see a junkyard? I don't think so. Do they want to drive down Arden Road and see a junkyard? No. But do they really care coming to a rural environment, and that's why they come here? They happen to see a bicycle laying in the yard, or a soccer ball, or firewood that's piled neatly, or a manicured lawn? I don't think so. That's why people come to this community, because of the rural environment. So does the bylaw, as its proposed bylaw, I think it misses the mark. What I see is that it's very much designed to protect the trespasser. Okay, it's not recognizing the Occupiers Liability Act of Ontario that was designed to protect that. But I'm going to go forward, and I'm just watching my time. The township is actually the second largest individual property owner, right after the Crown. So I'm hoping this is not a case of do as I say, not as I do. How do you plan to comply with your own bylaws? 550 kilometers of township roads equals 1,100 kilometers that need to have grass cut every time it's over 8 inches. Trees have to be cut. Well, once a year you're doing it now, you're going to have to do it many times. You've got Kennebec Shores, you've got cemeteries, Arden Pit, where for years there have been deep open pits that anybody could get hurt on. It's never fenced, it's not blocked. So I do ask these questions of how deep staff has gone. Mr. McGovern, in the budget, have you built in these significant costs? Don't think so. Has Public Works been asked if they've got the resources to cut all those roads, to cut all the limbs, to remove the trees? Fire Chief, are you not concerned about brush fires from having to burn all the leaves and the trees and the limbs? So those are concerns. I don't think they've been considered. Ontario Hydro comes in, they cut limbs, they chip them, they leave the piles. Has anyone talked to Ontario Hydro? Well, if I've got to move my limbs, Ontario Hydro and the township should have to move theirs. It's still unsightly. The Crown land, 17%. Has that ever been talked about? Sorry.
Yeah,
was-
almost
That was
wrapped
my
up there.
timer.
Yes.
Okay. So, and then last, if everyone has to place lights up and down their driveways, that's a concern. 550 kilometers of township roads are also dangerous at night. And the cost of putting street lights on 550 kilometers of roads is pretty astronomical. But I'm sure not one person here would ask a private owner to do something that the second largest private landowner is not prepared to do. So in summary, I'm respectfully asking, please do not agree to the March 13th date. Let's get it right. And then as Nike says, just do it. go forward with our bylaws. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff? Duncan?
Through Madam Mayor, I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record, but how could we better communicate with seasonal residents than we're doing right now?
So I was listening to that question, Duncan. My understanding, if you look at Frontenac or everything Frontenac, there is 14 cottage associations contact information. I would start there because ours has 125 members. So, you know, we can get it out very quickly. I will say, and I think in the first or the second pass, not as an association, I wrote as an individual to all 14 of those. The response I got was fantastic. Wasn't negative, it was fantastic. So that's one. Importantly, in this tax letter, every time this goes out, it should talk about the fact that people can watch. How do they get a hold of the agenda? That they can watch these Zoom meetings. Here's the contact information. Profile everything Frontenac. It's a wonderful site.
Okay,
Okay.
we've got lots of avenues like the website, so let's move on. Anybody else have a question or comment? Duncan?
Through Madam Mayor to staff. So if someone wanted to receive information like weekly updates on our agendas or information the township is putting out, is there a spot we can go to sign or someone can go to sign up to receive those emails so that they're notified when the agenda comes out?
You can sign up to get notifications. I don't know, Abby or Jody, what's it called?
Through you, Madam Mayor, usually on our website at the very bottom of the council page, there's a little subscribe tab, which you can put in your email.
And then, sorry, and then that sends you a notification when the agendas go out or when we
Yes.
make changes. or bulletins.
Whenever there's an update to that page.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much, Jeff. All right. And next we have Candace Harrington, who's going to speak about safe properties bylaw as well. And then I'll do the two motions for both.
Okay.
So Candace, and your partner is Joseph Brown. Yeah, just push, there we go, and pull the mic close to you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening about the proposed refinements to the Safe Properties Bylaw. It feels particularly fitting that we're having this discussion during National Green Week, a time dedicated to environmental responsibility and community well-being, both of which I think are the heart of this bylaw. Madam Mayor, when this council was first sworn in 2022, you encouraged members to take time to understand what we do, to suggest alternatives where needed, and to approach changes with purpose. And I have forgotten to put my approach change with purpose. You reminded us that no one has a monopoly on the best ideas and that meaningful progress requires collaboration and compromise. That spirit of thoughtful, necessary exchange is exactly what I think these updates to this bylaw represent. First, I want to highlight why I think these changes are important. It isn't about imposing arbitrary rules or over-regulation. It's about ensuring that a bylaw created over a decade ago still serves the realities of our community today. The world has changed since 2013, and so have the challenges we face as a township. A significant portion of the opposition I've observed seems to stem from the argument that the old one is good enough. But is it? If a bylaw is unclear, difficult to enforce, or out of sync with modern realities, then good enough actually isn't good enough. This updated version provides modernized standards addressing contemporary safety risks, environmental concerns, and emergency response challenges. It provides us with clearer guidelines, reducing ambiguity so enforcement is consistent and fair, not subjective. It strengthens our emergency preparedness, ensuring first responders have clear, unobstructed access when every second counts. It's a balanced approach to compliance by using a tiered system that prioritizes education and solutions before penalties. It also has environmental considerations, incorporating measures like no mow may to support pollinators and local biodiversity. I would also like to take a moment to address some of the most prevalent misperceptions or misinterpretations that I feel I've heard. Number one, this bylaw is forcing urban rules on a rural life. In actuality, this bylaw is not about aesthetics or dictating how people live. It's designed with flexibility in mind, with exemptions for agricultural properties, and a focus on safety, not appearance. Another one is the bylaw is just a cash grab. Actually, the intent of this bylaw, as I read it, is not revenue generation, it's safety. The fines are only imposed after multiple warnings and non-compliance. The goal is to encourage action, not punishment. And again, the idea that we don't need a new bylaw. I would argue that our township has changed over the past decade. New safety hazards, environmental concerns, and property uses require us to have an updated approach. This isn't about micromanaging, it's about ensuring the rules reflect today's realities. For me, some of the most troubling part of the past month of engagement and conversations, which was part of the process that everybody asked for and requested and has been part of the process since, is the attempt to work towards a bylaw that we can all stand behind has been the lack of respectful discussion and lack of support of our own township people. And that's a responsibility we all share. Madam Mayor, in your 2022 address to council, you wisely advised incoming council members to recognize that our hardworking township staff need time to adjust to the new leadership, navigate shifting priorities, and implement decisions effectively. You were also so kind as to say our staff work hard behind us, and it isn't easy when your bosses change every 4 years. And I would argue correct. Yet over the past few weeks and months, it feels as though we have strayed from your guidance in this regard. Instead of constructive dialogue, we've witnessed something very different, something deeply troubling. Because I have chosen as a citizen to engage in a public discussion in my support of the bylaw, it's not perfect. We have work to do, but I support the intent. But since then, I've faced online mischaracterizations, false claims about my background and my intentions, accusations of personal affiliations with township staff, all of whom I have never met before tonight, and direct and very public statements telling me I should leave this community. I don't share this for sympathy. I share it to highlight a much bigger issue. This happened simply because I held a different opinion. I expressed it respectfully. I listened to understand. I engaged with others, but I shared opinion they didn't share. Now, I'm also grateful for a lot of very thoughtful conversations I've had with people who have a difference of opinion and who listen to mine and I listen to theirs. These discussions have challenged and even refined some of my views on the bylaw. And I'm also encouraged by the openness of some of those who see the value in neighbors helping neighbors approach to making yards safer for vulnerable members of our community. but not all the exchanges have been positive. Not all have been respectful, and that's troubling, especially when so many have been calling for open discussion. As a private citizen, I have a choice to engage in this debate. I have the agency to decide if I wanted to sit here this evening, a decision that I'm sure you can all appreciate wasn't an easy one. Our township staff do not have that choice. They are not politicians. They are not here to campaign. They were recruited, vetted, and hired to do the work that keeps this township running, often in roles that go unnoticed and unappreciated. Yet they have been unfairly thrust into the spotlight and personally attacked for simply carrying out the responsibilities we've entrusted them with. Throughout it all, they have conducted themselves with a level of professionalism and grace, qualities that regrettably have not always been extended to them in return. If this is how we treat the professionals we rely on, how can we expect to attract and retain qualified, dedicated staff? After witnessing the unacceptable level of public animosity directed at our staff, who would be willing to step in these roles in the future? And how can we demand excellence while simultaneously undermining the people tasked with delivering it? I don't think this has been a waste of resources. I think the true waste of public town resources has been the way that this has unfolded. It has been a public spectacle. It has spread misinformation, and the hostility that has turned what should have been a really constructive discussion about community safety into what seems like a campaign of outrage. My call to action for all of us is simple. Let's build up, not tear down. This bylaw is not about control. It's about community. It ensures that first responders can do their job safely. Our environment is protected for future generations. Property maintenance expectations are clear and fair. And hopefully, it will attract people who want to live, work, play, and invest in Central Frontenac. I urge council and my fellow residents to move beyond highly charged rhetoric and work towards a practical, made-for Central Frontenac solution. No bylaw is perfect from day one. Like anything, we start with a strong foundation, we see it in practice, and we refine it as needed to serve this community better. Because at the end of the day, our legacy as a community shouldn't be about spotting problems, it should be about solving them. And it certainly shouldn't be turning against the very real people and public servants we entrust to keep us safe. I'll close with one of your own wise remarks, Madam Mayor, from that 2022 meeting. Together, we can make this a great place to live, work, play, raise our families. And I believe that's true, but only if we commit to actually working together as a community, listening to different voices, and valuing diverse perspectives. Because, as you said, no one has a monopoly on the best ideas, and real progress comes from collaboration and compromise. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Candace. A lot of very well thought out. And I want to say for staff, they don't pass the bylaws, we do.
Yeah.
It's council to be blamed for these decisions, not staff. And the Facebook comments were very upsetting. And if that's the kind of information we get from posting stuff on Facebook, why bother? It hurts staff's feelings. it makes them feel like they're being blamed for stuff that is the blame of us elected people. And anybody who wants to do this job in 2 years, put your name on the ballot. Come sit up here, come make these decisions because they're not easy.
And we can, I would say, Madam Mayor, we can have different points of view.
Yes.
I think that makes us, everybody has a different experience and different expectations and needs of this bylaw. My needs and my standards are going to be vastly different than somebody's else's.
And just to add to that, we have a draft in front of us. This is, I think, the second or third draft, and it's not done. And there have been changes to the bylaw that explain things better, that make it more succinct so that you're not talking about something that's confusing to people.
Yeah.
So we're not prepared to pass the bylaw tonight. We're still going to be looking at the changes. The
Yeah.
draft that's coming before us may in fact have questions from council and may go into another draft. So it's not like we're rushing this through.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you very much. Good to meet you and welcome to Central Frontenac. There we go. Okay, Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that to thank all three people our presentations tonight. And I guess the underlying theme is that taxpayers want input in our municipality, regardless of the way it came out. Or it's a great reminder to staff and council that taxpayers are the important ones here. They're the ones that pay the taxes and make the community work. And I think that we need to really start listening to our taxpayers.
Well, if we're going to have every bylaw vetted by every taxpayer, it's going to take a long time to get anything done. You are elected to make decisions on issues that come before you. And yes, it's great to have input, but there is also your responsibility to use your decision-making ability on some of this stuff. Anyhow, I have a couple motions I didn't read, and that is moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Duncan McGregor, that council receive the presentation from Jeff Mitchie regarding the draft safe yards bylaw for information. All those in favor? Carried. And I have another one moved by Cindy Kelsey, seconded by Bill Everett, that council receive the presentation from Candace Harrington regarding the draft safe yards bylaw for information. All those in favor? Carried. We will be looking at all of your comments tonight, and thank you all very much for doing that. All right, we're going to move on. Public meetings, there isn't any. Consent agendas. And nothing on that. Okay, moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Dan Meeks, that council approve items A through F for information as they're considered routine items. All those in favor? Carried. There's no deferred items. Now we're moving to staff reports, emergency services. Mr. Chris. February monthly report. Moved by Susan Irwin, seconded by Nikki Gowdy, that council received the Central Frontenac Fire Rescue Activity Report presented by the Manager of Emergency Services Fire Chief dated February the 28th, 2025. Hello, Chris.
Good evening.
Discussion.
Mayor.
Nikki.
Chief, two questions tonight. On the report, I think it could be an error, but you have saved $150,000 under Sherbert Lake January Fire 01, and it carries to the bottom. Is that?
I'm not aware of that. I'd have to look at that. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And my second question is a question I had for you last month. Our calls are going down, medical and stuff. So in your opinion, is it because you're doing a really, really great job with the education and the extra ambulance we added? Or is it just a number like?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Gowdy, it's too soon to tell with the change in the format of the call volume for the county. I think it's more based for the city area, the urban areas, not so much the rural area. I think it's just coincidental that our calls are down a bit more than usual. I am going to bring a report. I know I talked about it before. I will get a report to you and what the protocols are now for county EMS and how it will affect us. So, but definitely our calls for medicals have been less in the last 2 months. So, yes.
And if I'm not mistaken now, the call center is now rating the calls that if it's CTAC 1 or 2 or 3, whether or not the ambulance gets out there faster than the ones that could wait. And maybe the paramedicine people can go and do something in the home instead of taking people into hospital.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that's partially correct. They've gone to a color code system. We do have some concerns about some of the way to prioritize some of the calls. So if we have, say, a motor vehicle collision on the highway and we haven't given an update yet as to patient care and they get prioritized to another call, we may not see anybody there for, we could be 45 minutes, an hour or longer, we've been told. So those are some of the things, and we want to sit down with EMS, with the county, and we haven't been able to get that done yet. So
Call Chief Gowdy.
yes, we have a liaison on the fire side to talk to him, but we just haven't been able to coordinate the meeting yet.
Okay,
So.
good. Duncan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I noticed that you were successful for a grant for $32,000. So thank you for applying for that. That really helps get some of those projects done, and congratulations on being successful.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. Yeah.
All right. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you very much. Do you have anything you want to add to your
Just
report?
I was very pleased with the presentation from Kennebec in regards to the beaver dams. So I did just quickly discuss with Mr. Kennedy about setting up a meeting with Public Works and myself, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Excellent. Good. Good stuff. All right. Now we're at finances. Moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Lynn Clegus. The council received the accounts payable report, check distribution totaling $1,317,713.35 as prepared by the treasurer for information. When it's $1,000,003, it's hard to get it all over your tongue. Discussion? Duncan.
Through Madam Mayor to Michael, I sent you an email today asking a bunch of line items. Thank you for getting back to me so quick. It was just, they didn't make sense in my head, but you had them perfectly lined up, so I appreciate that. When should we expect the procurement policy to come back to council?
Through Madam Mayor to Councilor McGregor, my understanding was that there was a notice of motion that had to be put forward because council disapproved the one report that took out the group buying and 2 other items. In order to get the group buying back in there, my understanding was a notice of motion had to be done to bring that forth, and then I was going to be bringing that.
That's correct. So we'll look and see who it was. I think it's whoever moved in second from the previous one, I think we looked at. So we'll let council know.
Okay, all those in favor of paying the bills? Carried.
Madam Mayor, if I may just take a second to
Sure.
address what Councilor McGregor said initially. If any council has questions, please send them ahead of time because I can easily respond quicker and a little bit more information at that time. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. Moved by Dan Meek, seconded by Nikki Gowdy, that council approves the following apportionment of assessments as recommended by impact for 2024 and 2025 as applicable to the following roll numbers. And there's a whole pile of them there. Any discussion on any of those individually? If not, all those in favor? Carried. Moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that council received the 2024 Council Committee Remuneration and Expenses Report as prepared by the treasurer for information purposes only. Discussion. Duncan.
Through Madam Mayor to Michael. Michael, can you explain to the public and to the rest of council why my payment is $9,000 more than all the other councillors?
Absolutely. Through Madam Mayor to Councilor McGregor and the rest of council. Councilor McGregor's salary is higher because of the valuable work that he does in the fire department. And everybody else. So not to single Councilor McGregor out, but
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to say the more valuable work he does at this table.
no, I would never show any bias amongst council members. But no, it's on there. And when I reread Section 284 of the Municipal Act, in my opinion, it should be on there. I did send an email out to 247 treasurers yesterday. I got 9 responses. The majority of them do not include it. But when I look back, there were some who do. And, you know, you're going to have different opinions for the same factual way things are written.
Yeah.
I
Well,
just,
it's
I
not-
just want clarification because I was asked on the weekend and I just want
Okay.
everyone in the public to be aware as well as the rest of council why that was because
Sure.
it's not easily defined in here.
Yeah, maybe in future you could put fire or something to show that it's his work with the fire department.
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. I can add another column.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable because people who aren't going to listen to this meeting will still wonder. All right, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. All right, moved by Susan Irwin, seconded by Lynn Clegg, that council received the bylaw enforcement activity report as presented by the bylaw enforcement officer for information, and further that council received the draft bylaw enforcement policy as presented by the bylaw enforcement officer for information. Welcome, Nicole. Okay, we've got the motion on the floor. So do you want to just review or we'll ask questions first, Philip?
It's an easy one, I hope. Through you, Madam Mayor, just dog tags. We've collected 140 licenses this year. Typically, how many would we collect, and would we collect kennel licenses as well?
Haven't done a full year here yet. Usually the tax department that collects this.
If I may, I would say about 450 per year, just off the top of my head.
I was going to say about 500, but
Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot with that.
good way to start, eh? Okay. Any other questions of Nicole? All right. All those in favor of the motion? Oh, sorry, Nikki?
Thank you, and thank you, Nicole. It's a very detailed report, and I'm glad that you've been quite steady. My question is about the fines that you laid. Was there a particular bylaw or something that was not being followed?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Nikki, it's the bylaw, the only bylaw that we have right now through the administrative monetary penalty is the canine bylaw. These are for aggressive dogs, running at large dogs, different things within the bylaw. They were cautioned verbally, they were cautioned by written. Some of them were given orders to tie up their dogs, and the last resort was fines.
Okay. Now, the actual bylaw, that draft that's in front of us, any questions or comments on the red parts that have been added?
See,
Pardon?
you were talking about the safe and not the canine.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's finished.
So, okay, you finish what you want to say.
Oh, I'm done.
This is the activity report that we're on.
Yes.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Good report. Now we have moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Duncan McGregor. The council received the updated Safe Yards draft bylaw for information, and further the council provides the bylaw enforcement officer with feedback on the draft bylaw no later than March 13th, 2025. So that's another month. Now we can talk about that bylaw and all the red things that have been added for clarification or changes. Susan.
Through Madam Mayor, I'd just like to comment on one of the misconceptions regarding the bylaw, and that is pertaining to a right of appeal. There was an article in the newspaper by a former councillor that there was no right of appeal. And in fact, section 18.3 of the bylaw provides that every person who is in contravention of the bylaw may request a review in accordance with the administrative monetary penalty bylaw. And there are, in fact, 2 levels of appeal. The first is before a screening officer, and there's 15 days to request that review. It can be extended to 30 days. If the person is unhappy with the screening officer's decision, then there's a right to appeal before a hearings officer. And I felt it necessary to bring this up because I've spent my whole career appealing various government decisions, and I couldn't possibly approve a bylaw that didn't have that sort of recourse. So it is there. And there are also, the township is in the process of developing protocols, which council has to oversee, that there are protocols in place to oversee the operations of the bylaw officer, how the discretion is exercised to ensure that there is consistency, particularly in regards to whether or not a fine is laid, whether it can be reduced or waived. So, and there's also procedures, because I was concerned for, I represented through legal aid many unfortunate individuals. There is a big education component, as well as referrals to resources to help people. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention, because that was the source of some of the negative comments that I received. So thank you for that.
Good. Okay. Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nicole, I have kind of 3 questions for you. Is there a difference between a safe bylaw and a property standards bylaw?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is property standards that talks a lot about aesthetics. So I could, make you paint your house if the paint's peeling, aesthetic things. Safe properties deals with just that, safe properties. The things that I put in here are guidelines. So if I say over 20 centimeters, I don't have a ruler in my truck. I don't have the time to go around to everybody's yard, but a property standards talks about specific things, the type of driveway you can have, how you do your gardens, what mulch you use it. That's the property standards. And so it's completely different than the safe properties bylaw.
Okay, thank you. My second question is there any way, like I will be forwarding you my comments and stuff, but is there any way that you can define a rural component versus a hamlet component? Because there could be some differences, or would that be too difficult?
Well, each property is different. I look at geographical, that goes into my suggestions when I'm going to a property to talk to somebody. Basically, if you're in a rural area or the hamlet, if it's unsafe, it's unsafe, hands down. Am I going to be making people, trim little hedges, figurines out of your hedges? No, I'm not. But if that hedge is coming out onto the road and blocking a sight triangle in the village, absolutely, I'm going to make you cut that. If it's growing over the sidewalk where you have to walk out and around, absolutely, I'm going to make you cut that. It all goes on safety. I do in a way, but I don't. I take everything into account of, okay, well, where are we? If we're on a private lane and there's only one house on that lane, I'm not going to be too worried about that. If it's your property on both sides, that's your, unless the fire trucks can't get in, EMS can't get in. That's everything that we look at when we go to your property. The same as bicycles, and there's a soccer ball out front. That's not what we're looking at. I'm looking at if I have to dodge everything going up to your property, that's a problem. I don't care if a kid throws the bike, they're kids. It happens. I'm not going to complain about that. The safe properties is just that, safe properties.
Okay. And then my last question, I'm not sure if it's for you or if it's for Kathy, but when we do finally get a final bylaw, we're going to send it to the lawyer and have it vetted to prepare for anybody.
Absolutely.
Okay, Dan.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've had a lot of questions on scrap metal piles, junk, what people say junk. I mean, everybody has their own piles they keep around. Can you just kind of touch base on that, Nikki? Just so people know.
Yep, no, absolutely. I grew up here. I absolutely understand, having your side hustle with doing scrap metal, but it has to be done safely. If I can't get to your front door because I'm walking through scrap metal, or the scrap metal is piling out onto the road, if you've got 15 cars just deteriorating on your property, where's all the gas going? Where's the antifreeze going? That's what I'm going to be looking for. If you want to do scrap metal, that's great. Just do it safely. Do it so, people aren't tripping over it. It's not coming onto the road. There's not an environmental danger with the scrap metal that you're doing.
Also, material that is used for other products or other pieces of equipment that's kept around, like farm equipment, a lot on aggregate, stuff like that. Can you just talk about that?
Agricultural is actually, it's exempt from scrap metal because we totally get it. Sometimes you have a tractor over here to fix this tractor. And I absolutely understand on residence properties as well. You're going to have your wood trucks, something like that. And, if you're still using it, I'm not even going to bat an eye when I walk up to your property. It's the dilapidated ones that are sitting there. It's jam full of garbage. Grass is growing up. The windows are all smashed out. That's the issue. The same as dilapidated trailers. If a child gets in there and that collapses, and it does, I've actually seen it happen, that's what I'm trying to stop. If it's just fallen down and it's got no motor, it's just the carcass of the car, get it out of there.
Thanks.
Okay, good questions. And those are some of the things that I think people don't understand. It's an education and it's safety. Our firefighters are our volunteers, and we want to keep them safe. And the paramedics, we need them, so we don't want them to be running into spots where they get hurt. Lynn, and then Susan, I think, had her hand up.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I was just reading through the addition about the lighting, and as was mentioned by one of the residents tonight, I wondered if you could elaborate a little further on how expansive this lighting needs to be and just more details around it.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The lighting has been put, I've had some residents reach out and some complaints where they live in a property, especially rental properties. They can't see going outside because there's absolutely no yard light. We're not asking, in the village, yes, have your walkways lit up because you also have the street lights to help. But there are some parts where it's a community living and they can't see. I've been out there and I've had another staff member go out at night and you can't see your hand in front of your face. And these are vulnerable residents. And they've actually put complaints in. And so we need the wording in the bylaw so I can then make them fix the lighting.
Sorry, if I could add to that, like, what if you had a resident that they're rural and their laneway is 1 kilometer long? Do you expect lighting to be all the way out to the roadway for emergency services to get in? That doesn't seem reasonable.
No, and I would not, if somebody has a 0.5 kilometer, I wouldn't. If it's a rental property and, there's people with mobility issues, yes, you should have yard lights to light up the yard so they can see. If you don't want to turn your yard lights on, I'm not about to tell a private owner that, nope, it has to be turned on. Nope, you need this, you need this, you need this. A lot of this bylaw comes from complaints. So I'm not going to drive around and go, they don't have a yard light on. That's just not going to happen.
And in a lot of these cases, it's landlord and tenant issues.
Yes.
Which the bylaw would need to cover as well. Okay, Susan.
Lynn stole my thunder.
Duncan.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the public gave us kind of a very strong message that they want to be consulted on this bylaw and any changes we make. So my first question is, how do we plan to get feedback and comments from the public before the March 13th deadline?
So I think that March 13th was a date that certainly staff had put on. It's not finished. It is certainly up to council. Do you still want to continue getting feedback? We have received a lot of feedback. The more and more we do, though, it's just going to prolong getting a bylaw in. So as council, this is you have to make the decision. You have to pass the bylaw. If you're satisfied with the information and things that Nicole has already brought forth, we have received, like I said, many comments from people. And so it's sort of in your hands.
Have there been any comments in the last week?
It was, I think you received a couple, did you not?
Oh. Susan?
Thank you. So might I suggest that we do what we did with the other draft version and put it on the website, a link so that we can receive public comments up until March 13th. I think generally the comments that we've received, we haven't received many that are that different. They all fall into a certain category, but I wouldn't want to preclude the opportunity for more input.
So you're suggesting this draft that we have now, put this draft, the next draft on for comments. We could even go to the end of March, the second meeting in March, whatever that is. We just have to change our motion for a couple of weeks. That would give between, Chris, when can you get it back on the website? Tomorrow? Okay.
Depends on council.
So if we put this new draft on tomorrow, that's the 26th of February, till the 26th of March, that's another month for more comments on this current draft. Bill? Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you for all of the definitions that were put in there. I think that's helpful. Tonight, we've heard some more questions around how would you handle this? How would you deal with that? And you said specifically, I would do this, I would do that. My concern is if we don't have specific language in there, how we're dealing with these things, it's fine that you're going to deal with it that way. 2 years from now, we hire a second bylaw officer or something changes, we have someone else in your position. They may interpret it entirely differently than how you interpreted it. And we have someone else that's throwing fines out left, right, and center. So that's my only concern, that if we don't tighten things down, that it's very defined, that interpretation can play a big role.
Nicole has already prepared certainly a protocol and a policy so that moving forward for any other bylaw officers will, and I think council, I think we have provided a copy to council, so you all have it to review. And if you think that is sufficient, so that will be going forward for any other bylaw officer. It actually spells out the exact order and how to do the procedures.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm glad that we're going to put it back out there and put it on the website. Is there any possible way we can put a small ad in the North Frontenac News for anybody that doesn't see no, well, I'm just saying, like, go to the website. You can put your comments in on the website for anybody that doesn't look at our website that often.
We can. Duncan?
So yes, that was going to be my follow-up earlier, is going to be, I would like to put that right in the motion, that we post it on the township social media, we post it on the township website, and we post an ad in the Frontenac News.
You don't need it in the motion. Staff we'll just do it.
Well, no, I want it in the motion, actually.
Well, then you have to do an amendment.
Perfect. I'll do an amendment.
Okay. You don't trust that staff will take the advice, but
Last time it was put back that it wasn't in the motion, so.
You can prepare a motion.
all right. Anything else? Remember, the title is Bylaw Enforcement and Education. Susan.
I just want to thank actually the staff, the public for providing the comments that, especially the respectful ones, they were appreciated. And they've certainly highlighted the need for council and to develop a process for consultation. So thank you for that. But I think we also need to recognize the work that the staff have put into this current draft. It's clear from my reading of this draft bylaw that many of the concerns that were raised, obviously not all, but many of the concerns that were raised were taken into account. And so thank you for that.
As for the comment about seasonal property owners, they do, most of them, a lot of them, look at the North Frontenac News or have it sent to their homes. And definitely they are probably more the website users than a lot of us locals. So they should be staying on top of it. We can also maybe ask the associations to send something out to their membership. I think we have a list of all of the presidents that we could ship it to them.
So-
Philip.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, maybe Duncan could add that to his amendment, that we send it out to the cottage associations as well?
Sure. If folks have addresses, because some of the presidents have changed, make sure that you send the ones in your area into the office so that we get them all. We don't miss somebody. Duncan.
As I'm writing this amendment, just so I don't have to write it twice, what date would you like me to put in here for the comments received by?
Well, our second meeting in March is March 26th. The second meeting in March?
Second meeting in March is the 26th. So you'll want comments before.
But you want the comments before then, so the staff have a time chance to actually
okay.
look at them.
So what do you need? You'll probably see them as they come in anyway, but how about the 19th? That's the Wednesday before? Oh,
On the
okay.
19th. Because gives time to.
Better still, why don't we say 31st of March and we'll deal with it at the April 8th council meeting.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Until March 31st. Okay.
All right. Okay, so we have to do the amendment first and then the motion.
Yes.
Should I change the date in the original motion?
Yes.
Moved by Bill and seconded by Duncan. You're okay if I change this March 13th to April 8th?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Right fast.
Frontenac News. And cottage associations.
You know, it would be good if folks would come out to council meetings like this all the time. Yes, you do back there. It's interesting though, with being on YouTube now, it is available to those who use computers to watch the meetings, which is
A lot, dude.
certainly we've come a long way in the past number of years. I won't even say how many.
Thank you. This is
Okay.
February.
All right. Oh, okay. Moved by Duncan, seconded by Susan. The council received the draft safeguards bylaw for information. For the council provides the bylaw enforcement officer with feedback on the draft bylaw no later than April 8th, 2025. And further, that township staff post the proposed bylaw on the township website, township social media, Frontenac News, and in an email to the cottage associations.
We talked about March 31st to be discussed at the April 8th meeting.
Right. So I'm just going to change that if you're okay. So March 31st. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious, where would the feedback go to from the public? Would staff get that together, or does that go to, how do we bring that to council in advance?
It would go to staff.
Yeah.
Last time we had it go to you, Jody, but I think we need to just,
From the township.
Yeah.
On our own township.
Yeah.
Somehow page or something, we can figure out how to just have it go to a central spot on our website. And then from there, we pick it up.
yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. All those in favor of the amendment? Carried. Now, the initial motion was moved by Bill Everett, second by Duncan McGregor, that council receive the updated safeguards draft bylaw for information, and for that council provides the bylaw enforcement officer with feedback on the draft bylaw no later than March 31st, 2025. All those in favor? Carried. Same
That's
date.
the original, you have to do the original motion.
Yeah.
You do the amended motion, then you do the original
You covered
motion.
the same thing in the, yeah, it's
But this-
double covered.
But the amended motions he had who to list to.
All right. Okay. We're moving on to the administrative February activity report. Moved by Cindy Kelsey, seconded by Nikki Gowdy. The council receives the February 2025 administration activity report as presented by the chief administrative officer clerk for information. Any discussion? Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank Kathy for giving us a copy of the draft request for proposal. So
We can't really hear you.
sorry. Yeah, bedtime reading is what I have now. So thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. And just when you have some comments, just send them back to me. Okay?
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. And lease for the Charlotte Lake and Crow Lake Government Docks. Moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Dan Meeks. Whereas the township leases the Crow Lake and Charlotte Lake Government Docks from Fisheries and Oceans Canada, which is set to expire March 31st, 2025. And whereas a new lease has been received for consideration and execution for a 5-year term from April 1, 2025 to March 31st, 2030. And whereas the cost of the lease is $500 plus HST per annum or 20% of gross revenue plus HST. Okay. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approve a bylaw later in the meeting authorizing the mayor and CEO clerk to execute the lease agreement with Fisheries and Oceans Canada for the Crow Lake and Charlotte Lake Government Docks. Questions or comments? If we could go with 20% of the gross revenue, we wouldn't have to pay them anything. All those in favor? Carried. All right, flag protocol. Moved by Lynn Clegg, seconded by Philip Smith. The council received the draft flag protocol policy report as presented by the chief administrative officer clerk for information. And that council provide any comments on the draft flag protocol to the deputy clerk by March 14th, 2025. March 14th? Okay. And that if no requests for changes are received by the March 14th deadline, the draft flag protocol policy will be brought forward for enactment at the regular council meeting on March 25th, 2025. And that if requests for changes are received, staff will present a revised report for council's consideration at the March 25th, 2025 meeting. And further, that council approves the CAO clerk's recommendation to update the flag arrangements at Charlotte Lake Beach and the Arden Monument as outlined in the draft flag protocol policy. Discussion. Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks to staff for putting that together. A lot of work went into that. I did have one question for tonight and just wanted to know, does the municipality have its own flag?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Smith. Yes, we do.
We do.
Oh, okay. Duncan. And then Lynn.
I asked you, Madam Mayor, before the council meeting. I just wanted to ask the Ravenna Council and staff. I would like to see a flag flown at the council meetings. I was hoping we could work that into our flag protocol and see if there's a spot we could put it during our meetings.
Hang them from the ceiling, maybe.
On the stage.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have a place that we can keep them so you don't have to carry them back and forth, or do they?
Right up on the stage.
Okay. All right. Good. Someday we have to get a picture of our new reigning person.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of the sorry, Lynn. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. As I had pointed out earlier today, the cenotaph in both Arden and Mountain Grove, not just Arden.
Yes, thank you. I did receive your feedback, Councillor Clagus. The motion does state that we would change that, so you may want to.
We can just add Mountain Grove.
Yeah, if you could add Mountain Grove as well. And the motion being that it, instead of the Canada, Ontario, and Township, it would be Canada, Ontario, and the Legion flag in the cenotaphs.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could make a recommendation that we would just remove the Arden Monument from there, as the flags are already flown in that manner, as Councillor Clagus has recommended.
Okay, so we don't need Mountain Grove either?
No, I would make a recommendation to remove Arden from that, from the motion if that is.
Okay, so it's just the Charlotte Lake Beach.
Correct.
All right. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Right. Moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Susan Irwin, that council received the draft speed bylaw as presented by the CAO clerk for information, and further that council reviews the draft bylaw and submit any comments to the deputy clerk by March 3rd, 2025. And that if no comments requesting changes are received, staff shall present the final draft bylaw for enactment at the regular council meeting on March the 11th, 2025. And that if comments requesting changes are received, staff shall present a revised draft incorporating the requested changes at the March 11th, 2025 regular council meeting. Any discussion on that? Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank staff for getting the speed bylaw back and getting it back on the table in front of us. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All those in favor? Carried. I think the heat has gone off in this hall. Just saying. All right. I don't think it went on. Moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Councillor Kelsey, whereas request for a quotation administration 2025-01, an RFQ, was issued on January 16th, 2025 and closed on February the 6th, 2025 for cemetery maintenance and grave opening and closing services for a 4-year term. And whereas only one quotation was received, which was incomplete, and whereas staff have reviewed the submission and determined that certain duties within the care and maintenance scope could be reassigned to a separate cemetery grounds maintenance RFQ to encourage additional submissions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approves staff to revise the cemetery maintenance and grave opening and closing RFQ and develop a separate cemetery grounds maintenance RFQ. And further, that council authorized the mayor and CEO clerk to sign a 2-month extension of the current care and maintenance contract to allow sufficient time to complete the revised RFQ process. Discussion. The fellow that opens and closes really doesn't want to cut grass anymore.
I think that's the issue because of having staff. He's having difficulty getting staff himself. And with the amount of cemeteries that we do have, it is quite a lot. So we had been discussing about maybe separating it, having that separate and the grass cutting separate. So
We have what, 14 cemeteries?
yes, we do.
It's a lot of grass cutting. And of course, they all need to be cut at the same time. So it might even end up being people from different districts that choose to, it might be something we look at. I don't know. What do you think?
Grass cutting has been done that way before, because I know years ago in Elm Tree, there was a young lad that would cut the grass for the township at the little one that was in Elm Tree.
Yeah.
So it has been done.
Okay, well, we can figure it out as we go along. We've got a bit of time. As long as we've got snow, we're not cutting grass. Philip?
Well, you're going to issue it right away though, right? So would you not want to know whether we want to separate it into separate districts, or is that just how staff is going
Yes.
to do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you wish to, we can do it in each district.
Well, if you think it's going to help, I'm going to say
Yeah.
then that's what we
Maybe
should
see
do.
what we can get for it all first. And if we don't get any takers,
Then we can certainly discuss that with the individual that maybe would put in for it. Or we may get a couple. I'm not sure. It's getting very difficult to, I'm sure that, to get people to
But
to
if
cut
the
the
one
grasses.
person wanted it all, they could bid for all of them anyhow.
yeah.
Yeah, they could.
I'm just trying, if you want options from us, then I would say go for it, but
Okay.
Go for,
separating it and doing
Separating it
in district
individual
if
if we-
you think it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
it takes a long time to cut a cemetery because you're going around so much.
With the headstones and things.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah, we can certainly, I think staff's going to look. at
So we'll do that. We'll do it by district.
By district, we can certainly try
Is
that. We'll
that-
see
I
how
see
that.
nods.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. Nikki?
Just out of curiosity, will our groundskeeping tenders should be going out by the end of February anyways, because they're due by the end of April, like April,
Yes.
and we'd asked for 60 days. So will you be combined, like, could you include it all in the tenders?
No, they're two separate. We already spoke with both Bill and Steve on that, and they found that that would be too much to put that on to the other caretakers. But yes, they are preparing the RFQ right now to get it out.
And who looks after the mowing of the cemeteries? Like who manages that in staff wise?
No one right now on the staff, well, that would be, Stephanie would be talking with the caretaker,
Okay.
whoever.
So it's administration.
Yes.
Okay. Where the other grass cutting is done by the roads department.
Yeah.
Or managed by them.
Yes.
Dan?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Would each district be budgeted or bid separate, like
Yes.
each district, like
Yeah, like whatever, like if
instead of all
you've
the
got,
cemeteries together, just
if
each
you've got
area,
3
right?
cemeteries, then it would be 3 you'd be bidding on in your district.
Right.
Yeah.
He wants a job.
Some young entrepreneur may want that job.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Committee or other reports? There aren't any. Communications, Safe Yards public feedback. Moved by Dan Meek, seconded by Philip Smith, that council received the public feedback regarding the Safe Yards bylaw draft as collected on the township website using feedback form for information. All those in favor? Carried. And Safe Yards online petition, moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Nikki Gowdy, that council received the online petition regarding the draft Safe Yards bylaw for information. Any discussion? Duncan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the members of the public, we did receive both the petition and all the comments. We just received them in a closed email so that they weren't in the council agenda, but we did actually receive them and take the time to read them.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. And bylaws, Moved by Lynn Clegg, seconded by Bill Everett, that bylaw 2025-06 being a bylaw to enter into a lease agreement for Crow Lake and Charlotte Lake Government Docks be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 25th day of February 2025. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And we have a notice of motion. Councillor McGregor, reconsideration of pickleball resolution. Moved by Duncan, nobody seconded yet. Seconded by Cindy. That council reconsider the following motion passed at the January 14th council meeting. Motion number 413, 2024, that council deny the use of the Piccadilly Hall for pickleball due to the cost of the repairs that happened in 2024. Discussion.
So is this, I'm not sure of the procedure, like, so is this for to reconsider or are we right now voting?
This is to reconsider it.
So we need 2/3 of the people voting for this in order to reconsider it.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's 2/3 of 9? 5, 4, 6. Okay, so I guess we should maybe have a recorded vote. Okay, do you want to do
Oh,
that?
yes, there's the recorded vote sheets here.
I don't have any spaces on my piece of paper here.
No, you wouldn't.
First, do you want to have a discussion about it? We should
Sure.
probably do that before we vote. Susan?
Well, I would support the motion simply because we received further information that wasn't available when we initially made the decision. So I think we need to take that into account.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, all right.
Okay.
Oh, I'm freezing.
So record for the recorded vote then,
Yes.
Fran Smith.
Sure, yeah.
Yes. To reconsider. Cindy Kelsey,
Yes.
Lynn Clagus,
Yes.
Bill Everett, Susan Irwin,
Yes.
Duncan McGregor,
Yes.
Nikki Gowdy,
Yes.
Danny Meeks,
Yes.
and Philip Smith.
Yes.
So
Okay,
now you can,
all right, so that's carried.
it's carried. Yep.
So then when do we actually discuss whether or not we're going to do it?
The next meeting.
The next meeting, okay.
Okay.
All right. Is there any giving of notice of motion?
No, there is not, Madam Mayor.
Is there any new or other business?
No, there is not.
Okay, there's no closed session. So I have an adjourning motion. Moved by Susan Irwin, seconded by Cindy Kelsey. You and council, Kelsey and council goes together. That bylaw 2025-07 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held February the 25th, 2025 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 25th day of February 2025. And further that this meeting be adjourned until Tuesday, March the 11th, 2026 at 6 p.m. for a regular meeting of council, said meeting to be held Soldiers Memorial Hall, Charlotte Lake. All those in favor? Carried.
5.
Oh, 26 is probably a better
She's
date.
got 2025 there.
7:47.
Okay.